I want to talk about the circle of fifths today, but I don't want to do a music theory lecture. There's plenty of presentations where music teachers are presenting the circle of fourths, and it is fascinating to look at, and it is a fascinating way to conceive of all 12 of the keys in our Western musical system. And it does look like a clock, and it's interesting that every note that's directly across from the other one is a tritone interval. It is interesting how you move one direction and it's sharp keys, you move the other direction, it's the flat keys. A whole lot of things we could talk about. But I want to talk about not just theory, but rubber meeting the road, playing the harmonica and playing this sequence of notes on the harmonica and getting used to practicing patterns in all keys using this root order. Now, I've talked about the circle of fifths, that's the name for it. If you move the other direction around the circle of fifths, the root order becomes fourths. So more specifically today, I want to talk about the circle of fourths. The circle of fifths and fourths is the same thing, it just depends on which direction you're moving around the clock. But I want to talk about learning the sequence of notes and memorizing it. And I don't know any real shortcut to it. I think it would be helpful to write down, and you don't have to write them in a circle. You could write them horizontally or vertically. When I was in high school, I wrote the circle of fourths in pencil on the musical instrument locker. I remember it was yellow paint, and I wrote it on the inside of the door. I started with C, and then what's a fourth away from C? F. What's a fourth away from B flat? Or from F, B flat. What's a fourth away from B flat? E flat. And you just keep going, moving in fourths. Eventually, you'll get back to where you started from. And I started practicing my major scales using that root order, and it turned out to be very helpful the year before I was going to college and studying music, that I had that under my fingers already. But as much as we memorize major scales, I think it's important to memorize this almost as its own scale, the circle of fourths. So write down the notes first on a piece of paper or a 3x5 card or a whiteboard or something. So you're, and I will let you Google it. You can look up what the circle of fourths is and write down those notes. Then get so that you can play the sequence from memory and you know the name of each note as you're playing it. I was 13 notes. I wound up back where I started from, at C. Then the next step you could take is to play just a whole step, bouncing off of each of those degrees of the scale. So we're bouncing. A to D to G. So that's step two. Step one is, can you play the sequence of notes, even if you have to hold them out? If it helps, get a tuning app on your phone, and that'll tell you what note you're playing. Then you could go C to B flat to E flat. Am I landing on the right notes? And your ear will start to tell you as you get used to this interval. So playing the roots, playing a whole step, then it seems like I should start playing a major pattern, but I'm going to play a minor pattern. I'm going to go C, D, E flat. We're going to play like the first 3 notes of the minor scale in all the keys. I guess we could go up and down. Yeah, let's go up and down. That was all the keys. Or practicing entire scales. So, and then go up to F. B flat. E flat. So one of the books I have is Patterns for Jazz. This seems to be the predominant root movement of these patterns. This book has you playing patterns in all of the keys. Most of them are in fourths. Some of them are in whole steps. Some of them are in half steps. Some of them are in minor thirds. So there's all kinds of options for root order. There's something about practicing patterns in this interval of a fourth that sounds musical. That's because many songs are composed with the chord progression moving in fourths. So you got a song like Autumn Leaves, that whole song, if you look at the root movements, it's all moving in fourths. Now, one of the chord changes, it's not a perfect fourth, but it's still a fourth. It goes from E flat to A, which is a fourth, but is not a perfect fourth. But those chord changes sound very logical. It sounds kind of like a composer that you might have heard, Bach or somebody. So it makes sense. A lot of jazz tunes, whenever you see the 2-5-1 progression, the 2-5-1 progression is a series of fourths. D minor to G to C, and then sometimes to F. That's a sequence of fourths. So it's logical, and it feels and sounds musical when you practice things with this interval. So can I just encourage you to memorize this order? And when you practice them, don't always start on C. See if you can start on A and move around the circle of fourths. And just start practicing simple patterns like that, moving around the circle of fourths. And if you've been practicing things in all keys, just moving up in half steps, this will be like a refreshing change for you. Anyway, check it out.